This video was brought to you by GiveWell. In our last video on X and Twitter, we reviewed how the company was doing a year on from Elon Musk's $44 billion takeover. Our conclusion? Well, pretty poorly. Mass layoffs, premium subscriptions, and a name change have all contributed to a loss in daily users and ad revenue. And more recently, the billionaire owner has managed to further cheese off many major advertisers like Apple, Disney, Warner Brothers, and IBM by telling them to go f yourself at the New York Times Dealbook Summit a few weeks ago after they all pulled their ads from the platform following Musk's apparent endorsement of an anti-Semitic post in mid-November. With X mired in controversy, other social media companies have started enthusiastically offering Twitter-style alternatives to fill the bluebird-shaped space on the internet. To name just a few, last year there was talk that the decentralized social media platform Mastodon could replace X. Then Instagram launched its own Twitter-style app with Threads, and even former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey has his own Twitter simulacrum with Bluesky. So in this video, we're going to take a look at a few of the rivals attempting to capitalize on X's recent turmoil, and ask whether any of these newcomers really stand a chance of usurping it as we go into 2024. Okay, so let's start with a quick update of how X is doing right now. And the main issue at the moment has been falling ad revenue, which has historically accounted for the vast majority of the company's revenue. And in this regard, things are going pretty badly. The New York Times suggested that X could lose up to $75 million in ad revenue by the end of 2023, as companies like Airbnb, Amazon, Coca-Cola, and Microsoft have already frozen or are considering freezing their ads. According to internal documents seen by the New York Times, more than 100 brands have fully paused their ads, while dozens of others are listed as at risk. Now, some brands began immediately scaling back their advertisement on the platform shortly after Musk's takeover, concerned about his impulsive behavior and content moderation decisions. But Musk's tweet in mid-November has catalyzed a sudden wave of disengagement. To explain briefly, Musk replied to a post suggesting that Jews were deliberately stoking hatred against whites and warning about hordes of minorities flooding their country, with him calling it the actual truth. In his New York Times interview a couple of weeks ago, he admitted that the tweet was one of the most foolish, if not the most foolish things he's done on the platform, and that causing outrage was not his intention. But regardless of his intention, the timing of all of this was pretty terrible for the company's finances, given that the last 3 months of the year have historically been Twitter's strongest quarter. In Q4 of 2021, the last year before Musk took over, the company recorded $1.57 billion in revenue, of which nearly 90% came from advertising. And this doesn't compare very favorably to the company's estimated revenue for the entirety of 2023. And that's because data from market research company Insider Intelligence forecasts that X's annual ad revenue is set to be $1.9 billion, which is less than half of the 2022 figure of $4 billion. And it's not just profitability either. Musk's comments have made CEO Linda Yaccarino's job a whole lot more stressful too, which is a bit ironic considering he made the appointment of the former advertising exec back in May precisely to improve ad revenue and partnerships with key brands. In a post after Musk's interview, Yaccarino said that he'd offered an apology, an explanation, and an explicit point of view about our position. But regardless, Musk's actions impact the business, and with X's rivals smelling blood in the water, a race has emerged to capitalize on the chaos. So, with that in mind, let's explore whether any of them could really threaten X in 2024, starting with Instagram Threads. Musk's tech world nemesis and potential cage fight rival Mark Zuckerberg launched Instagram's Threads in early July, and it rapidly became the fastest growing platform in history, gaining over 100 million signups in just 5 days. Now, this was partly facilitated by its ability to import accounts and their followings directly from Instagram's 1.4 billion strong user base, although concerns were raised about personal data being transferred between the apps, which both belong to parent company Meta, along with Facebook and WhatsApp. Now, content on Threads is a lot more streamlined, which could encourage more organized discussion, but it's also a lot less searchable and discoverable than X, and there's no function to see trending topics. Threads has also differentiated itself from X as a more positive, friendly, and accessible text-based platform, whereas X centers around hard news, polarizing debate, and criticism. And the head of Instagram, Adam Mosseri, even stated that while the company isn't anti-news, it's not going to make news a central part of its offering either. It seems then that Threads doesn't want to replace X as a news source, instead prioritizing engagement from celebrities, brands, and businesses. But what if we compare their figures? While Meta hasn't actually shared active user numbers for Threads, Intelligence Insider analyst Jeffrey Goldman said that the social network has nearly 5 times fewer active daily users than it did during its July launch. Now, this could be turned around somewhat by Meta's planned launch of Threads in the EU, which could see an extra 40 million monthly users, according to the Wall Street Journal. But as of the time of writing, the app is still unavailable in the EU due to strict personal data regulations. But despite a pretty disappointing last few months, Zuckerberg has outlined his ambitions to grow Threads to 1 billion users in the next few years, and as such, is holding off on plans to monetize the app for now. But these growth ambitions do look pretty optimistic, and many people who use X for news and current events are unlikely to be seeking this information on Threads instead. Moving on from Threads, what about Mastodon? Mammoth by name, but not quite by nature, the app was founded back in 2016 by German software developer and entrepreneur Eugen Rockschuh, but it didn't experience significant growth until Musk's purchase of Twitter in late 2022. Now, unlike Threads and X, which are owned by single private companies, Mastodon is a non-profit and decentralized open source platform, meaning it's made up of a network of independent servers which anyone can set up. Posts on the platform are organized chronologically rather than ranked by an algorithm, and each community has its own rules for content moderation and visibility, so what's deemed appropriate on one instance might be blocked on another. It's also worth noting that there's no search function or account verification on the platform. Numbers-wise, Mastodon clocks up 1.8 million monthly active users, which is admittedly minuscule when compared to X and Threads. But it's important to note that people might choose Mastodon for different reasons. Specialized servers mean that Mastodon is well placed to support engagement among organized communities based around specific themes, interests, or subcultures, while X and Threads are based on a follower-following model. And while some users have suggested that the ability to customize one's feed makes it feel like an early version of Twitter, others think it's more like a forum than a social media platform. Ultimately, this means that businesses and brands are unlikely to turn to Mastodon for marketing purposes, not least because, as a non-profit, Mastodon has no interest in advertising revenue. Then there's Bluesky, another decentralized app, which was founded as an offshoot of Twitter in 2021. And interestingly, Twitter's co-founder Jack Dorsey sits on its board of directors. Bluesky says that it has over 2 million users, and although there aren't any monthly figures to compare to the other platforms, we can assume that its invitation-only sign-up system means that it's the smallest and most closely controlled of the 4 we've discussed. And according to the magazine Creative Boom, it's currently a bit of a desert, full of tech folk who are angry at Twitter. But it also functions and looks a lot like good old Twitter, focused around microblogging with the options to like, reshare, and comment on posts. Now, the company is set to add a public web interface soon, allowing anyone without an account to view posts online, as used to be possible with Twitter, although users will also be able to opt out of having their posts made public. All of this relies on Bluesky's open source network AT protocol, which aims to give more control to users, who will ultimately be able to connect with anyone using AT protocol. Okay then, going into 2024, which platform seems most likely to usurp X, if any? Well, obviously, Meta's huge reach and the integration of accounts via Instagram means that Threads' user base is expected to grow through the new year, especially once the platform hits Europe. But Threads still lacks a number of key features like navigation, search, hashtags, and cross-party integration with other social networking sites. And another stumbling block for Threads' market dominance is that users can only sign in with pre-existing Instagram accounts, while X users can immediately set up as many accounts as they wish using different logins. Mastodon, meanwhile, offers a great alternative space for engagement and community building, perhaps a bit more like Reddit, but it's less broadcasty than X and lacks opportunities for advertising, so it's unlikely to draw in major brands, businesses, and influential figures in quite the same way. It's also been criticized for being too complex due to its multi-server administration. However, its decentralized business model is more user-centric and could open up new possibilities for integration with other apps. So, could Bluesky actually be the one? It's certainly the one that looks the most like Twitter as we used to know it, and its decentralized foundation and reliance on AT protocol makes it billionaire-proof in the words of the Bluesky team, who were clearly enjoying throwing some shade at Musk. However, copy-pasting elements of Twitter into a new service by no means guarantees its success, as larger platforms like X tend to retain a strong user base even when similar competitors emerge. Take Instagram Reels, for example, which, despite mimicking TikTok, hasn't actually succeeded in destroying it or even taking away that many of its users. Realistically then, no serious competitor to X, with its hundreds of millions of users, has yet emerged, and it's incredibly difficult for new accounts on other social media platforms to amass the same network of followers and following that they had on Twitter. It's plausible then that over the next few years we'll see a general trend towards decentralized social media, which could lead to more integration between platforms like Mastodon and Bluesky. But the so-called network effect means that X will likely maintain dominance over the text-based social networking arena for a while yet to come. There are over 1.5 million non-profit organizations in the US, and millions more around the world. So how do you know which ones are going to make the biggest impact with your donation? Well, GiveWell was founded to help donors with that exact question. They spend tens of thousands of hours poring over independent studies and charity data to help donors direct their funds to evidence-based organizations that are saving and improving lives. In fact, GiveWell has now spent over 15 years researching charitable organizations and only directs funding towards a few of the highest impact opportunities they've found. That's things like vitamin A supplements, which can cost as little as $1 to deliver, but can reduce vitamin A deficiency in children, thus improving mortality rates. Together, over 100,000 donors have used GiveWell to donate over $1 billion, and rigorous evidence suggests that these donations will save over 150,000 lives and improve the lives of millions more. In fact, in 2019, when we sold TLDR-branded pin badges for charity, we turned to GiveWell to help select the charities that we donated to, ensuring the maximum impact of our giving. And GiveWell wants as many donors as possible to make informed decisions about high-impact giving. As such, you can find their research and recommendations on their website for free. You can also make tax-deductible donations to recommended funds or charities, and GiveWell doesn't take a cut. Plus, if you've never donated to GiveWell's recommended charities before, you can have your donation matched up to $100 before the end of the year, or as long as the matching fund lasts. To claim your match, go to givewell.org, pick YouTube, and enter TLDR News at checkout. And do make sure that they know that you heard about GiveWell from TLDR to get your donation matched. Again, that's givewell.org to donate and find out more.